Hello there, my name is Ileana, and this is Brandon, and he's running for Zone 3. And let's start the interview. So, I want to ask you about the housing situation, affordable housing. What would you like to do about that as a city council member?
Absolutely, yeah. So the city has a very interesting situation wherein we have over 14,000 vacant units within our community and a number of vacant undeveloped lots that represent opportunities to provide infill development without having to significantly increase density in our community. But new housing isn't the only solution that we have to consider. We also have to look at helping property owners to stay in their homes by providing resources for them to make repairs and upgrades so that they can age in place. And then also making sure that we're providing support for housing developments that provide a mix of income units so that we aren't concentrating poverty in any one area, but allowing folks to be located in amenity-rich neighborhoods so that everyone has access to all the same resources through our city.
Perfect. And like concerning like the most people talking about trails and stuff like that, concerning that, how would you help improve that?
Yeah, so trails and transit are a really important piece of our community's future. Whenever you talk to people about why they love the city of Springfield, it's because of our natural amenities that we have, like Lake Springfield, our Greenway trails, and then James River. So making sure that we're pairing protection of the natural environment with trails so that we're maximizing the use while minimizing the impact to the environment. And then also providing alternative forms of transportation. So it's not enough to just build greenways that are sort of like bike highways through our city, unless you can actually get to them and feel comfortable doing it on the bike. So there needs to be a comprehensive bike network. And the city's done a good job of building some backbones, but there's definitely more work to do.
What do you want to do in regards to poverty and homelessness in the area?
Yeah. Poverty is a driver of a lot of the issues that our city is facing. When it comes to crime, poor housing, these are all issues that, at least in part, stem from poverty. When folks feel hopeless, they're going to act hopelessly. So making sure that we're providing appropriate services, and not just housing services, but also making sure that we're providing job training services, programs for folks to get an education in whatever field, whether it's construction or nursing, so that they can find a path for them to be productive in our community while also helping themselves.
What are you going to do in regards to the policing around here?
So we need a fully staffed police force first and foremost. We're down about 50 officers. The city just graduated, I believe, 18 new police officers who will be joining the sworn police force. So Chief Williams is chipping away at that slowly but surely. But we need to make sure that we're helping to keep our police officers here. After talking with several officers, one of the issues that they noted is we have such a good training program for our police officers that it's almost sometimes used as a stepping stone to move on to like federal police work.
I have another question. Do you think the police are adequately trained in regards to mental health as in relation to crime and homelessness, poverty, etc.?
Yeah, well,
do you believe it's they're trained or not so much, or you add additional try to encourage it?
For me, it's not so much a lack of training or anything like that. It's that we don't have our police force necessarily staffed in the right way for police officers to be dealing with those kinds of issues. Whenever you have police who are working in a certain portion of the city day after day, so rather than having to respond to calls all over town, if they're out able to be making relationships with residents, making relationships with businesses, making relationships with the homeless folks that might live in that neighborhood, it allows them to react a lot more humanely to situations when someone is having a mental health crisis, because they know the name of that person and they know the struggles that they face.
And like in regarding to funding, would it be possible to fund other divisions as well to help prevent unnecessary police interventions, like such as including mental health funding, for example. Like,
Absolutely, yeah. And the city's taken a step towards that as sort of a pilot program. They have a crisis unit that can respond in tandem with police officers whenever there's a confirmed mental health emergency. So I think it's using that program, taking the lessons learned from it as we continue to implement it, and then identifying how it might need to be restructured to better meet the concerns that it was designed for, but it's a step in the right direction.
okay, another thing I want to do in regards to transportation, like I think like we require more buses in Missouri, or like, you know, and other elaborate things, you know, besides trails, like more of a walkable way, or more transportation like buses, for example, or possibly a train or anything like that.
Absolutely.
What's your opinion on that?
Well, so funding for transit is pretty limited in our state, at least at the state level. Right now, the public transit system is housed within city utilities, and it operates at a loss for them every year, I believe to the tune of around 10 million, but it's been a couple of weeks since I talked to them, so don't hold me to that. But it definitely operates as a net loss, so it's figuring out how to make that system self-sufficient so it can invest in improvements. The city city utilities just conducted a transit study, so looking at the routes that buses are using, as well as the frequency, and looking at whether those need to be realigned. I've personally taken the bus a few times, and it is much less convenient than using a personal vehicle, to the point where you almost have to intentionally choose that rather than considering that as a valid option for getting around. But the one other thing that I think the city could do, everybody complains about congestion within our city. If we continue to expand roads, it's the theory of induced demand, which means as you add lanes, you're just going to be putting more cars on those streets because they're going to think, oh, Campbell Avenue just got widened, so I'm going to take that because it's going to be faster. So you can't build your way out of it, but you have to figure out how to shift people's choices so that they genuinely want to take the bus and consider it a valid option. An easy first step to that is making sure that we're investing in our bus stops so that buses are pulling out of driving lanes. If you've ever driven down Campbell, I've gotten stuck many times behind a bus that stops in the lane to load and unload passengers. So that's a way to improve traffic while also improving transit safety and efficiency.
One last question though, what are you going to do in regards to the increased tax on Airbnbs and etc.?
Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that I support people using their property as they see fit, but we have to recognize the impacts to our community of those choices. Nobody can deny that we're facing a housing shortage, and so as we see homes taken out of the residential market and used for commercial purposes to house visitors overnight, I think we need to recognize the impacts that has in our city. So I support treating them more like a business and making sure that they're providing revenues to the city for the increased demand that they place, because we have more cars driving our roads and greater demands on our infrastructure through the use of these properties. So I support a tax increase. I'm frustrated that state regulations require that those funds be used for tourism and marketing purposes. I think it makes more sense for the revenues from a tax like that to be used to address our affordable housing issues, but it's not allowed under state regulations.
Of course. Well, I guess this concludes our interview. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go.